something else that this could be. And take a look again and watch when he just does a little squat here and then, oh, oh, oh. This is an amazing day to commemorate what the greatest generation did 80 years ago as they stormed the beaches of Normandy. Unbelievable achievement of courage and sacrifice. And honestly, what America has always stood for, right? Freedom, liberty, pushing back against fascism and oppression for people we don't even know. And to see the people of France, the people of Europe thanking those veterans who are still there today, it was stirring. It was emotional. It was fantastic until the president of the United States showed up. Let's take a look at what everyone's looking at. He gave a speech there, but honestly, hardly anyone's talking about what he said. We'll show you a little bit of what he said, but it's really more about how he behaved and what he did and how weird it was, how weird he is, how out of it he is. Take a look at this moment right here. Everyone's talking about this moment. He greets the president of France, President Macron, and then he goes to, well, you what?
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin.
All right, now, clearly it looks like he's trying to sit down, and there is a chair there, but the chair is a little bit further back, I think, and clearly he's not supposed to be sitting down. Jill's doing nothing to help him, by the way, right? Here's Jill's supposed to be his minder, right? His handler, his hospice care worker, and she's doing nothing. She's just standing there letting him do whatever it is he's doing. By the way, look at the veterans there who were like, 20 years older than him, watching, saying, what the hell is wrong with this guy, right? Look at all the vets in the back there. These incredible, courageous Army Rangers that climbed those cliffs at Pointe du Pont. And he's like, he can't even stand properly. So a lot of people are saying, well, he thought he was supposed to sit down and he's not supposed to sit down. But then something else that this could be. And take a look again and watch when he just does a little squat here and then, oh. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting at? I mean, he's done it before. He did it in front of the Pope. He did it in front of the White House last month. And then it's like, oh. You can see Jill instinctively brings the hand up to the nose because she knows what's about to happen next. I mean, I don't know what's going on there. We'll never know exactly what's going on there. I know what it looks like. Our great producer, Kevin McMahon, who you should be following on X, by the way, that's his account right there. He gives us a vivid yet subtle description of what it appears is happening with the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, the commander-in-chief of our armed forces, as he goes to represent all of us on this solemn and important historic day, the 80th anniversary of the Normandy invasion. I know what it looks like. That's exactly what it looks like. He's pinching a loaf. He's taking a growler. Or, as the Babylon Bee puts it, he's dropping the first bomb on Normandy in 80 years. God, they're good. Yeah, that would be apparently, allegedly, supposedly, reportedly, not confirmed. But once again, that's your president pooping his pants. This time, I mean, he's sort of directing it at the president of France, which generally I would support and applaud, except maybe not on this day, maybe not 80th anniversary of D-Day. Let's move a little further on in the program here. Here is President Biden sitting alongside all of these other world leaders.
Au-dessus de nos têtes, des énormes obus de nos navires de guerre. Certains de ces
You can see there's Prime Minister Trudeau there representing Canada. You got the President of France. You got Prince William there representing Great Britain, wearing his military medals, and you see Joe Biden there. Joe Biden, some would say he was closing his eyes because he was overcome by the emotion of the moment. Some less charitable folks would say the old man just fell asleep, like he always does. He just decided to close his eyes and take a bit of a nap. I would like to think that he is closing his eyes and sort of experiencing every nuanced moment of the load he just dropped in his pants, seeping into the very crevices of his upper thighs. To me, that's what he's doing. That's how I would like to think of my president. Why do I think that? Well, because after the presentation and the speeches were made, and it came time for the individual world leaders to greet and congratulate these 100-year-old plus veterans of the D-Day invasion who have made the trip around the world to be there once again to commemorate this incredible human American achievement. As all the world leaders went there to greet them, our president got quickly ushered away. Yeah. So there's President Macron spryly running up and down the stage, greeting all of the vets, hugging them, thanking them. There goes our guy walking. And you can tell he's sort of like trying to keep everything together there in the postural region. Have you noticed that he walks that way? He walks in a way where he tries not to move his hips. You try doing this. Try walking in such a way where all of the motion of your legs are from like the top of your knees down, but you keep everything tight at the hip area and waist area. See, you're doing that because you don't want anything to jostle. See it? See it? Look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Jill's guiding him out of there. His upper torso doesn't move at all, right? And it's because he's got a load. Why else is he the first one to leave? Why else is he getting the hell out of there? Why is Jill dragging him out of there saying, all right, Joe, we got to clean you up. This is embarrassing for everybody, right? And the way he walks. And meanwhile, again, other world leaders are all taking the moment, soaking it in, properly representing their country, properly giving due deference and praise and love to these incredible heroes. There's Macron getting it done on behalf of France. Now, that could be what happened with Joe Biden. It seems to be the indications point to, and the Babylon Bee is confirmed through their own independent reporting, that that's what happened. Meanwhile, there is this video of him saying to well, go ahead and take a listen. I don't know if you caught it. Listen one more time. Now, yeah, this is the president of France greeting the president of the United States at the red carpet right there in the village. By the way, if you've never been to the Normandy, it's amazing. If you've ever been to Normandy and been to the cemetery there and the monument, at some point in your life, put it on your bucket list. You've got to go there. I just happened to be able to go last year. It's phenomenal. I recognize where he's walking here. It's amazing. He's walking down the red carpet with the president of France on his way to this commemoration. And he's telling the president of France, my advanced people tell me I've got to be the first one to leave so as not to hold anybody up. Well, first of all, who's running things here? You're the president of the United States. You're representing America on a day of our monumental achievement and the loss of hundreds of thousands of American troops on those beaches. You take your own damn good time. You don't get bossed around by the advance team. What you don't hear is President Macron's response. Here, let me try to, I read lips for a living. Let and I also speak French. So here he is. He's explaining how he has to leave early, advance team. Oh, oui, I understand, Monsieur President. Thank you for being here. Why do you smell like a porta-john? Why? Well, oui, or may I say in this case, poo-poo. Because there is a smell coming, and it seems to be right from your derriere. How you say? You crap your pants again? I understand. My great-grandfather is an old man, too. He's very feeble. And this is the worst French accent in the history of mankind. That's our president, guys. You want to know how bad it is? Take a look at this. Take a look at him arriving there in the presidential Suburban. And look at how disoriented he is. And could he just fake it at least? Could somebody inside the car say, okay, sir, you're about to step out. The world's eyes are going to be on you. Can you at least pretend like you know where you are, what you're doing, and where you're going? Because, you've got the nuclear codes. Look at the Secret Service guys, by the way. Look at how they know. Look at him. This is what we've got now. This is who's representing us. And this is at the moment where we're acknowledging the courage and bravery, achievement, strategy, military power, and sacrifice of our men at the time in uniform. When we're acknowledging the incredible leadership and power of Dwight Eisenhower, who would soon become president of the United States, who coordinated this incredible achievement on those very shores. This is what we've got. This is what we're now bringing to the table. Also, did you notice when you look at the 100-year-old veterans of World War II, and you look at the 81-year-old president of the United States, so he was born a year before D-Day, right? So he's 20 years younger, maybe 18 years younger than the World War II vets. Do you notice there's not a big difference between the two? Have you noticed that they're all sort of, that 20 years disappears in an instant? Because, yeah, he's 81, but I'm going to tell you something. He's a really old 81. Yesterday, before the Normandy events, he sat with ABC News and gave an interview. And in the interview, he was asked about the current state of affairs of Europe and where Europe is now 80 years after America helped liberate it from fascism. And he said this about Vladimir Putin.
Let me ask you about what Vladimir Putin said last night about this authorization of American weapons inside Russia. He said the supply of high-precision weapons to Ukraine for strikes on Russian territory is direct participation in this war. He went on to say that this is the way to serious problems, and again talked about Russia's nuclear capabilities. Does that concern you?
I've known him for over 40 years. He's concerned me for 40 years. He's not a decent man. He's a dictator, and he's struggling to make sure he holds this country together while still keeping this assault going. We're not talking about giving them weapons to strike Moscow, to strike the Kremlin, to strike just across the border where they're receiving significant fire from conventional weapons used by the Russians to go into Ukraine to kill Ukrainians.
My God, he's getting worse and worse by the day. We talked about this yesterday, the loss of breath control, the loss of the use of his vocal cords, and how just out of it he seems at all times. But beyond that, beyond the performance, beyond the details of what he just shared, beyond the lack of cognitive ability and physical ability to actually even conduct an interview, do you realize how high the volume they had to crank up on his microphone was because he doesn't have his little karaoke mic? This mic that he likes to use. Listen to his voice and how feeble he is.
He's not a decent man. He's a dictator, and he's struggling to make sure he holds this country together.
Yeah, okay. But right before that, he said this.
I've known him for over 40 years. He's concerned me for 40 years.
I've known him for over 40 years, says Joe Biden, the president of the United States. Well, I mean, listen, the fact is Joe Biden has held public office for over 50 years. So I guess it's possible that he's known Vladimir Putin for over 40 years. But see, here's the problem with that. 40 years ago, Vladimir Putin, now the president for life, dictator of Russia, at the time, he was Vladimir Putin's undercover KGB operative for the Soviet Union. So if, in fact, Joe Biden knew Vladimir Putin for over 40 years, it means he knew him when he was a KGB spy. Okay. So one of three things is happening here. Either Joe Biden interacted with a KGB spy when he was a senator in the early 80s. B, Joe Biden is a bald-faced liar, and he's saying just crazy shit to try to impress people. Or three, his brain just doesn't function, and he has no idea what the hell or who the hell he's talking about. As usual, we like to keep open the possibility that it's a combination of all three. But I find it very hard to believe that Joe Biden has known Vladimir Putin for over 40 years. So what did Biden say in Normandy? What was his speech? It was barely coherent. But he did say one thing that has gotten a lot of people's attention, where he drew a comparison between the fight to liberate Europe from the Nazi oppression of World War II to today's threat against Ukraine from Putin and Russia. He said this.
They've inflicted on the Russian aggressors, they've suffered tremendous losses in Russia. The numbers are staggering. 350,000 Russian troops dead or wounded.
Now, we've tried to get the transcript of the speech from the White House, because usually by now they will have printed the speech and they've cleaned up all of the mistakes that he makes, because we want to know what in the hell he's talking about here. Now, he might be confusing Russia with Ukraine. Okay, that's one possibility. Listen.
They've inflicted on the Russian aggressors, they've suffered tremendous losses in Russia. The numbers are staggering. 350,000 Russian troops dead or wounded.
Okay, that could be it. Or he could be lamenting the loss of life for the Russians, which I guess he could be doing. Like, isn't it terrible that Putin has put Russia in such harm's way that they've suffered all these losses? But that doesn't seem quite in keeping with his character and past remarks that he's made. He hasn't expressed regret. And why would you express regret about the loss of Russian troops versus the loss of Ukrainian, well, troops and civilians? Let's not forget. We're not sure. We don't know. And see, that's part of the problem, because you've got a president of the United States representing our country on this incredible, momentous occasion, and we have no idea what the hell he's talking about. Oh, and one other thing. He decides to take this occasion to draw parallels to the world we're living in right now compared to what it was like under Nazi aggression in the 40s on the day that American troops undertook this incredible adventure to begin the liberation of Europe from Nazi fascists. And he decides that the perfect analogy then would be Russia and Ukraine, which is kind of weird, right? Because there's another war going on in the world right now that is a much better example, right? I mean, you want to compare the Nazis to someone. Sure, I guess you can compare them to Russia, but wouldn't it be a better comparison to compare the Nazis to Hamas? You know, and the anti-Semitic murder of innocent Jews in Europe during World War II versus the anti-Semitic murder of Jews, innocent Jews today in Israel? He made zero mention of that. It was a great opportunity to connect the dots of the fight for freedom and against anti-Semitism of World War II and the evil, hateful Jew hatred that motivated so much of World War II. It would have been a great opportunity to do that. But for some reason, Joe Biden made no mention of that. Zero. Not one mention, which is odd, don't you think? Unless, of course, he's, taking sides in that conflict. I don't know about you, but I need sort of a cleanse. It is so embarrassing and mortifying that our country is represented by this guy on this day in this way, that just for a couple of minutes, if we could we remember 40 years ago when in this same spot on this same day, instead of Joe Biden, we had a real president speaking on our behalf?
Here in Normandy, the rescue began. Here, the Allies stood and fought against tyranny in a giant undertaking unparalleled in human history. We stand on a lonely, windswept point on the northern shore of France. The air is soft, but 40 years ago at this moment, the air was dense with smoke and the cries of men, and the air was filled with the crack of rifle fire and the roar of cannon. At dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. Their mission was one of the most difficult and daring of the invasion: to climb these sheer and desolate cliffs and take out the enemy guns. The Allies had been told that some of the mightiest of these guns were here, and they would be trained on the beaches to stop the Allied advance. The Rangers looked up and saw the enemy soldiers at the edge of the cliffs shooting down at them with machine guns and throwing grenades, and the American Rangers began to climb. They shot rope ladders over the face of these cliffs and began to pull themselves up. When one Ranger fell, another would take his place. When one rope was cut, a Ranger would grab another and begin his climb again. They climbed, shot back, and held their footing. Soon, one by one, the Rangers pulled themselves over the top, and in seizing the firm land at the top of these cliffs, they began to seize back the continent of Europe. 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms. Behind me is a memorial that symbolizes the Ranger daggers that were thrust into the top of these cliffs. And before me are the men who put them there. These are the boys of Puente Hope. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. And these are the heroes who helped end a war.
We had no idea how good we had it. We took it for granted when that man was our president representing us. God, do we deserve better? For those of you who might not be old enough to have remembered Ronald Reagan as your president, go back and watch that whole speech. And by the way, one other note, at the time, 40 years ago, 1984, the Democrats, the liberals, the left-wingers, the Marxists, they're not too different than they are today. They were there at the time, and they were trying to convince us that that guy, he was too old to be president. That's what they said. He was old. He was feeble. He didn't have it all together. That's what they said about that guy that you just saw. Of course, 5 months later, he won 49 out of 50 states because it was an election year. Let's just hold on. November's coming. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get it right.